Welcome to Buckeyes Tomorrow Morning for Thursday, June 1st. I'm your host, Tom Orr. The Indiana game is in 93 days. The game against Michigan in 177 days. The game against Indiana is going to be played at 3:30 p.m. on the 2nd of September. That will be televised on CBS. That was one of 3 game times that were released just one day ago on Wednesday this week. The Buckeyes will play Indiana again 3:30 p.m. on the 2nd of September on the road again on CBS. That second game of the year, the first home game of the year against Youngstown State, that is going to be a noon kickoff on Big Ten Network. Week 3, Western Kentucky, September 16th. That is going to be a 4 p.m. kickoff on Fox. One more game where we have a little more information than we did before. The October 7th game against Maryland. That is not going to be a night game. The kickoff time is still to be determined, but they have said it's either going to be a noon, a 3:30, or a 4 o'clock game. So I guess get that sunscreen ready. That's about all we know. Beyond that, we'll all find out together. But now you can sort of plan out your first month of Ohio State football. We now have kickoff times for all of those first 4 games, as well as Michigan State, Michigan later in the year. So you can find all that news on the front page of BuckeyeHuddle.com. We got a story up about that. So if you want to get more details on all of that, you can find that there. Earlier this week, we got a chance to talk to a whole bunch of Ohio State assistant coaches, including Ohio State offensive coordinator Brian Hartline. Today's show, you're going to be hearing directly from Hartline about a whole bunch of different topics about this year's offense, some of the star players that the Buckeyes have, a new addition to the coaching staff, and much more. But this was the first time we get to chance to talk to Hartline since the spring game, which means it's the first time we get a chance to talk to him since the accident that happened the night of the spring game. He was riding a side-by-side around 1 a.m., got in an accident. The Delaware County Sheriff's body cam video from that was a little scary, a little bit of a frightening situation. So this was the first chance to kind of get an update from Hartline on how he's doing, all of that. He said he's doing fine physically. He was also asked what he learned from that situation. He didn't have a lot to say, but here's what he did have to say.
No, there's nothing I can really say. I mean, all I would say is that in hindsight, I probably would have rather went to bed instead of rode in a side-by-side, but that's about all I'd say.
So again, this was the first time we got a chance to talk to Hartline since that spring game. And so now that he's had a chance to kind of review all the film from the spring, review the film from the spring game, sort of take stock for where things are, they've made some transfer portal additions, they've lost some guys to the transfer portal. So when all is said and done, is the goal of spring to have a depth chart that you really feel confident in by the end of that? Or is that something that they're just going to kind of take into August and it's just sort of, here's another milepost on the way to that?
No, I would say coming through spring, you want to get an idea of some people you want to be able to start relying on. You want to identify points where maybe things need to improve. You want to, again, start outlining guys you're going to count on in the fall, and then continue to develop them through summer. Identify individually and offensively things that we need to improve on, but also things that we do well. At the end of the day, coming out of spring, you want to start having an identity, and putting those guys in position to create that identity is really important.
Mentioned earlier that there was an addition to the offensive coaching staff. That is Joe Philbin. That was the former head coach of the Miami Dolphins when Hartline was a player. Now a little bit of a role reversal. Hartline is the offensive coordinator, and Philbin is on the staff at Ohio State as an offensive analyst. So what has that been like to have his former head coach now working on the same staff as he is?
Having Joe's been great. I think the perspective he gives, the wealth of knowledge that he has as a position coach, head coach, a football coach. I mean, I think everyone in the building can learn something from him, and he really, it's really awesome. I mean, to say it's not, a little, pretty cool in my perspective, to be around Coach Philbin again in a different light, in a different way, would be an understatement. So, very happy he's here. He's a great addition to our staff.
Philbin, obviously an experienced offensive mind, but that's the same offensive meeting rooms where you've got Hartline and you've got Ryan Day and you got Tony Alford and you've got Keenan Bailey and you've got Justin Fry and all those different guys, all the QC guys, all those guys, all in those meetings. So when you have so many people in there, is everyone free to kind of speak their minds and throw out ideas, or is it more follow the leader in there?
Yeah, you encourage dialogue. You encourage ideas. Sometimes the idea that comes out is not the right idea, but it then sparks another conversation, and eventually you find yourself down a road where it's a good conversation. I would hate to ever have a room where people are nervous and scared to speak. Now you want to make sure you know what you're talking about or those kind of things, but and that encourages that. But I think the more dialogue you can have with the kind of caliber of coaches we have in our room, it's always a good thing.
When you bring in a veteran coach like Joe Philbin, what are you actually looking for him to bring to those meetings? What kind of insights are you looking for out of him?
Sure. I mean, I would say, he's not just blurting out all the time. He's waiting to maybe be called upon or pulled aside or whatever. But I'm sure if there's a thing that he believes strongly in, he'd be willing to voice his opinion. Again, all opinions are welcomed. I would just say that he's not in there trying to overtake the room. He is very respectful of everyone that's in there. And as much as we're learning from him, I know he's trying to learn from us. So that's a pretty normal situation.
Well, I mentioned off the top of the show that the Buckeyes made some additions in the transfer portal, and one of those additions was Lorenzo Styles Jr. Now, he's going to be playing cornerback at Ohio State, so he's on the defensive side of the ball. He's not with Hartline, but Hartline did recruit him out of high school. He was, of course, a wide receiver coming out of Pickerington, Ohio, and was recruited by Ohio State as a corner. He ended up going to Notre Dame as a wide receiver. Now he's back at Ohio State. So what does he bring to the Buckeyes?
He's a great athlete, always was in high school. I thought he was a heck of a player. Again, I don't want to speak for him, but, I felt like, coming out of high school, he was a good athlete. I felt like I may have told him I thought his best position was corner. So, I know it's always tough finding the path and believing on what you want to do and then maybe switching. And I can only guess how hard that would be. But I'm really excited he's back. As an individual, as a person, he's awesome. So to add more and more people like that to our locker room is only a bonus for us.
Ohio State did add some players in the portal. Lorenzo Styles, obviously, Josh Simmons among them. But they also lost some players in the portal. For example, after the spring, Caleb Brown, the wide receiver, very talented second-year wide receiver, he ended up hitting the portal and headed to Iowa. And losing guys, talented second-year guys like Caleb Brown, like Caleb Burton, that feels almost inevitable when you have so many top guys and only so many of them can play. So was that, though, sooner than he expected to maybe lose some of those guys?
No, I guess I didn't really have any expectations. I was just, hopeful to continue to build and shape the room as best we can. I completely understand all the pressures that everyone has. And frankly, what they feel is right is up to them. But it is just tough, man. I mean, I think at the end of the day, they're just trying. They feel like they have a 4 to 5 year window, and they're just trying to give themselves the best chance.
Caleb Brown and Caleb Burton both left, but man, there is still a ton of talent left in that wide receiver room. So when you have that level of talent with the top guys, with some of the young guys who are already trying to make a name for themselves, does that just sort of help push everyone to higher levels when you're playing around so many talented guys like that?
Typically, the more talent you have, the more you're demanding of the player, and then the more you can demand of the player, the more of the growth you're probably going to get for each individual. So the goal is to continue to add the best players in the country to the room to allow to push those that are currently there and those that are coming. So that's always the goal. That's what we're going to try to do.
He lost a couple guys, but he has some very, very talented starters coming back and some very, very promising young players in that room as well. So how comfortable is Brian Hartline with his room right now heading into the summer?
I feel pretty comfortable. I'm not to the point where I'm going to relax. I mean, I think that, I take that back. I don't know if you're ever comfortable. I think that I'm very honored to be in the role I'm in, and I'm not taking it lightly. But I would never say I guess I'm comfortable. I like the path we're on. I like the work that's being put in, and I'm excited to watch these guys work and apply through summer. I would say that.
We talk a lot about wide receivers with Hartline, of course, because that's his background. He played there, he position coached there, but now he's the offensive coordinator, so now he gets talked to about some broader offensive stuff as well. And what is the top conversation about the offense this year? Well, if it's not the offensive line, it is definitely the race for the starting quarterback job. That is a position that is still open. That battle is still ongoing between Devin Brown and Kyle McCord, but what has Hartline seen from those two guys this spring that has him feeling pretty optimistic about things this fall?
I would just say the way they work, and not just the allotted time that we are given. They work outside those lines as far as on their own and with the guys. Both guys spend a lot of time that way. The way they compete, the way they still, give each other pointers, the way they do everything, frankly, is very encouraging. And the competition's only going to drive both of them. So all of those reasons are why I'm very confident in the end process.
And finally, it would not be much of a Brian Hartline show if we didn't talk a little wide receivers, and it would not be a wide receiver show if we didn't talk about Marvin Harrison Jr. Harrison, of course, had a dynamite second season in Columbus, on his way to his third and, let's be honest, probably final season with the Buckeyes before he heads off to the top 5 or so of the 2024 NFL Draft. When you look at him, he obviously has the genetics. He has the profile where his dad was a Hall of Fame NFL wide receiver. That's a pretty good start. But how much of a unicorn, how much of just you hear people call him an alien, you hear people call him a mutant. He can just do things on the football field that most people can't. So how much of a unicorn is Marvin Harrison Jr.?
Well, I think that his unique talent is yes, I think Marvin is an elite player. I think Emeka's an elite player. I think Julian's an elite player. I think we can keep going on this list over and over and over again. But I think that what makes these guys so elite is the way they prepare, the way they work, the way they do the extra things outside the allotted time, the way they study film, the way they live. I think that everything they do plays a part in what you see on Saturday. I feel like those questions are, thinking it's just all God-given and like he didn't work for everything he got. Like he has literally worked for everything that he has, and that's the level at which you see for him, for Emeka, for Julian. All these guys are going down that path. It has not been given to them; they have earned it.
Well, that will do it for today. We have much, much more content from those interviews at BuckeyeHuddle.com. Tony Girdham has been busy writing about a bunch of the stories coming out of those interviews, and we'll have a little bit more from those interviews coming up tomorrow. We'll do a show with some Jim Knowles interview clips for you as well. It's been quite a while since we've gotten to do these, and I know these are always popular shows, so we're gonna give you one more of those before we wrap up the week. So make sure you check out BuckeyeHuddle.com for all of that great content from Tony and Kevin, recruiting stuff from Mark and Alex, great X's and O's scheme stuff from Ross and Devin and Justin and Mikey. Great stuff, great community on the message board there. If you are the type of person who might be looking around for a new website to join, that might just be the one you want to do. It is a very fun community, really, really deep bench of insiders, lots of great access, lots of great content, lots of great fun, all at BuckeyeHuddle.com. That will do it for today. Thank you guys all for joining us. Have a great day. We'll talk to you tomorrow.